Good evening. This is our Wednesday night product experience and training call. I appreciate all of you being with us here this evening. I'm Keith Hooper here in Central California with my darling wife, Sandra. It's been our pleasure to be here with Immunotech for over 23 years now, coming up on, I guess, that amount of time. Been a great experience we've had here. And we do these Wednesday night. They're product experience and training calls where we openly share what the products from Immunotech Research do. And to that point, what we do is let everybody know that this call is meant as a training call intended for the exclusive use of Immunotech distributors. The products from Immunotech Research do not cure anything, but as Hippocrates said some 2,500 years ago, let food be thy medicine. And simply the most important foods you can use is Immunocal and Immunocal Platinum, as well as our other great products. So this evening we've got some great guests. We've got Anthony Spagnoli out of the Toronto, Canada area. Our good friend Dr. Barry White is with us as well. And we've got just some great information to share with everybody here this evening. And I was going to try to get over to Judy and Skip, but I can't do that because of the number of calls we've got here. But we've got people advancing through the compensation plan here with Immunotech, sharing this product as they've got a brand new silver that has just come on board with them here she went silver this month, and so our congratulations go out to Kimberly Dietrich. And as Dr. Skip said, and his darling bride Judy were sharing, she's a cancer survivor, so we're just going to have to get her on as one of our guests here on this Wednesday night product experience and training call. Going to suggest you do a couple of things this evening. Number one, grab a pen, piece of paper to go with it that's clean, because you're going to want to take some good notes. You're going to get some information here that you've not heard before, and you're going to want to share it with people going forward. So we've got a great call lined up here. Next week, just a little housekeeping, next week we have Wendy Whelans joining us. Those of you who've been with Immunotech for a long time remember Wendy. Wendy did a number of calls with Sandra and I a number of years ago, and she's coming back to share additional updates. Wendy was a girl who was literally covered from head to toe with psoriasis and had Crohn's disease so bad she was down to less than 90 pounds at 5'5". So she's going to be with us next week on this Wednesday product experience and training call. But tonight, we are very, very honored to have Anthony Spagnoli with us. Anthony is a fireman out of Toronto, Canada. To those of you that understand, I have a great deal of admiration for firemen. They're the people running into the building when everybody else is running out. And so that's a man of great courage, and he has another areas of courage in his life that he's doing. And he's going to share some stories of his son and his family's journey over the last 8 years here with Immunocal and what it's done for his family. So, Anthony, good evening.
Hey, Keith, how are you?
Well, I'm really, really honored that you take the time here on a Wednesday night to come and share your experiences that you and your family have had with Immunocal and the benefits that you've had with that. So before we get into Ethan's story, why don't you share with everybody a little bit about Anthony and where you're from, how long you've been a fireman, and a little bit about yourself.
Sure, yeah. So my name's Anthony Spagnoli from Newmarket here just north of Toronto, and I've been a firefighter since 1993. Quite some time. I got on when I was really young. I'm turning 44 this year, and that's in a nutshell. I'm married with 2 kids. My son Ethan's 13, my daughter's 5.5. And plugging away.
Yeah. Now you've been exposed to a lot of toxins. You've been exposed to a lot of things that like I said, we run away from that kind of stuff, and you run into it. But I know you've been an avid user of Immunocal as well. Before we get into the story with Ethan,
I have. I was fortunate enough that someone gave me a call. He was a firefighter as well, and he called to help me out with Ethan in terms of hey, you should try Immunocal. When I did my research on it, and I thought, oh my goodness, with firefighters, our first line of duty death isn't burning in a fire or getting injured. It's actually cancer. There's many cancers in legislation today for firefighters. So I thought, boy, oh boy, I need to be taking this stuff. So I've been an avid user. I take 1 platinum and 1 regular each day, as well as other Immunotech products. But I've been fortunate enough to have been introduced to Immunocal for that reason as well.
Now, Ethan, your son is you're saying he's going to be turning 13, correct?
Yeah, he just turned 13. Yeah.
Just turned 13. How time flies, right? Because I remember we had a conversation, and he was just turning 4, and all those years ago. So, if you wouldn't mind, Anthony, give everybody a little snapshot of let's start off with Ethan's first 4 years, if you would.
Yeah, so when Ethan was diagnosed at the age of 2.5, he basically had his MMR shot shortly after. He had a seizure, was intubated at the hospital, came out, and little by little realized that things just weren't typically developing. Got the diagnosis of autism, and sure, we were upset, devastated, as any parent would be, but we thought, hey, let's do whatever we can to help. So we immediately, figured out he'll need ABA therapy and all the things he's going to need, but obviously everybody talks about naturopaths, right? You got to go to a naturopath because you got to try, the natural way. There's remedies. And literally, we went to the best naturopathic doctor that was around, who was specializing in autism. And, with Ethan, I mean, he was nonverbal. He was aggressive. He wouldn't make eye contact. Eating was a challenge. I mean, it was difficult, to say the least. We then tried various ways of detoxification through the naturopath, such as chelation, which obviously there's a direct correlation with the gut and the mind, and it just didn't work. There was a lot of side effects that kind of were happening with Ethan because of his body just couldn't tolerate it. We tried, the methyl B12 methylcobalamin injections that I was actually injecting him, multiple times a week because that was supposed to help. I mean, you name it, we tried it. It didn't help. There was nothing else. And again, perfect timing with Richard McCurdy, who gave me a call and said, hey, you got to try this. I said, you know what, dude, I'll try anything.
I know, Anthony, when we had that first conversation, you were actually finishing up you're finishing up a nutritional protocol, and actually waited for, I think it was a couple of weeks, it may have been, to finish that up to see if there was some improvement before you started Ethan on Immunocal, to make sure that it wasn't. If that product worked, you wanted to know if it was it, and if it was going to be Immunocal, you wanted to know that it was Immunocal. Is that correct?
Absolutely. When we started Immunocal, Ethan was on nothing else.
Okay, so now once again, refresh everybody's memory. So the day you started him on Immunocal, give us your recollections of where Ethan was at in the spectrum scale.
Well, he was severe in the spectrum scale, no question about it. Nothing had improved. Things were the same, and they were just getting tougher. I mean, we could barely get the supplements into him without him, throwing them up, it was just not fun.
And he had started pre-grammar school, correct? Junior grammar or junior kindergarten?
Exactly.
Okay, so he was in school when in the pre-kindergarten stage when you started him on Immunocal, correct?
Correct. So he was.
Let's talk about Immunocal then. That's what everybody's here to find out about tonight. So why don't you share with everybody maybe the first 90 days of what you saw?
Yeah. So when we first started, we didn't tell anybody that he was on it, just because we were tired of telling people we're trying something and it's going to work and so on and so forth. So, again, we just started him on the Immunocal, and we were giving him half a package a day just to get him used to it. And, it's over the course of the first couple of weeks, I went to go pick him up at school, and the teacher kind of had tears in her eyes when I was picking him up, and I said, what happened? And she said, oh, my God, you're never going to believe this. He turned and asked a little girl, what are you eating for lunch? And I was like, no way. Like, there's no way. Are you kidding me, right? And same thing, we were at my mom and dad's and leaving my mom and dad, so this is maybe another week had gone by, and usually when my dad would say goodbye and my mom would say goodbye to him, I mean, he wouldn't even turn around to acknowledge anything. I mean, he's just gone, right? There's no eye contact, there's nothing. So he literally turned around, he walked back to my dad, looks right at him, and says, because my dad had said, "Oh, see you, Ethan, be a good boy," so he turned around, went back and said, "I'm always a good boy." And like literally he was floored. I mean, it was just like, and that's when we told him, "Oh my God, like we started this stuff called Immunocal, and like this is the stuff that's starting to happen and change." So I know those may not seem like they're huge things, but for anybody that kind of goes through a child with autism, I mean, they're huge. And, I mean, progressively we just started seeing things improve, over time. And I mean...
Now, you were giving Ethan a half a pack today, and I know that part of the children with autism, one of the things they have they only like a few things. So how are you giving him the Immunocal?
Yeah, so he started with a half a pack, but over the within a week we built him up to a pack. We just wanted to make sure he was going to be tolerate it, and we were actually mixing it in like pudding. So, I mean, we tried applesauce, but pudding seemed to be the, you could buy gluten-free pudding. We were mixing it up, and it dissolved completely into the pudding, and he was able to take it that way. So that's how we gave it to him, and he stuck to a pack. Now, as he got older, because obviously he's been on the product for a long time, we experimented with giving him more, with,
let's don't jump ahead. We got a lot of good stuff to cover. We got plenty of time here. This is important. Yeah, this is important. I got you, so I'm going to take advantage of you. So,
yeah.
So if we go to that end of that first year, the end of the school year, and he finishes up, and they have a graduation for that class, is that right?
Yep.
And why don't you share with everybody a little bit about that?
Oh, you know what, Keith? It's funny. You probably remember these stories better than I do, because there's been so many, especially recently.
Well, the thing that I recall is that when he graduated, the fact that when people were there, if they didn't know if he was if they were not aware. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. 100%. So, I mean, here we are, Ethan, obviously has autism and this and that, but from the behaviors that we were experiencing with him to the end of that year, I mean, obviously he got recognized for being, special and whatever, and people didn't even know. And it was like, wow, that was the biggest compliment, really, that, here's a kid that, I mean, was severe to the point where he's in a classroom and is able to do everything else that the other kids are doing, and parents and others not recognizing. I mean, he was just a different kid, and that was just, within the first school year, right?
And that was 9 years ago. And I know one of the people that was very instrumental in the beginning of this, and I know you had a lot of questions, was our good friend Dr. Barry White, who is also there out of Barrie, Ontario, which is about 45 minutes or an hour north of you. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I know you have a lot of deals. So, Dr. White, have you got anything you want to bring in at this point of this conversation, going back all those years ago in those conversations with Anthony?
Yeah, part of the conversation was Anthony showed me a picture of Ethan, or it was actually a graduating class, and I remember I asked Anthony, okay, which one's Ethan, because I couldn't pick out a different child, and he said, wow, you can't even pick that out. That's the point. He's so not different now compared to what he was at the beginning of the school year. So that's one of the things I remember from what Anthony was sharing me back when Ethan was 4 years old.
And that was a video. I remember that as well. So, yeah. So, Anthony, so we move forward. Let's don't get all the way up to the present, because I know you've got a number of other events that occurred through that. So why don't you share some of those things that you think everybody would appreciate, and then we'll get it to where Ethan's at today. So take us through that the next 8.5 or 9 years.
Oh my God! You know what? It's funny. Dr. White telling me about the video, I just remembered about that video. I totally forgot about that. So boy, oh boy. Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, he's started school, and obviously as he got older, obviously differences are going to be known even more, right? Because when you're little, they all act silly, or they might act a certain way, so you don't really realize things. But as he got older, it was phenomenal that he was improving to where there wasn't a significant difference in how he acted. So, he needed an EA at first to guide him and help him, with structure, because obviously that's, was an issue for Ethan, as many other kids on the spectrum. And he was doing his behavioral therapy, which, obviously Immunocal, if it wasn't for Immunocal, I know I keep saying it, but therapy wouldn't be as effective. Nothing would be as effective. It was helping him with that. It was helping him with his speech path. It was helping him in so many different avenues. And, even in terms of food, this is one of the biggest things, is Ethan would not eat anything. He wouldn't try anything. He wouldn't eat vegetables. It was just so difficult to get any type of nutrition into him, which again is important. At least he was getting Immunocal into him, but he came such a long way. He wanted to start trying things. He would try things, and again, today you would not even imagine that he was like that at one point, because he literally will eat anything, and which helps in many ways. So that's one of the biggest things that changed, and a lot of the other parents that I've kind of spoken to and helped along the way, that has been an issue for a lot of kids on the spectrum. So
Ethan is also playing hockey?
Yes. I mean, as a parent, I never in a million years thought that Ethan was going to get to the point of being able to play organized sports. I mean, it just wasn't something, that I thought would be possible. And this will be his third year. There's a special needs hockey league, and his team is called the Newmarket Nighthawks, and they compete against other cities, London, Peterborough, Barrie, Kawartha, Scarborough, and they all have different teams. And he is an unbelievable hockey player. He scores multiple goals. He actually gets it. He's one of the guys that understands, well, if I pass the puck, then this guy can score. It's just amazing to watch. Skating, he's unbelievable. Again, never thought he would ever be able to do that, but he competed at a tournament and actually won a medal, and it was kind of the games for all the special needs organizations, and they came from all over the world, and he was such a proud moment when he got that medal that he was actually in a tournament, playing against other teams, from all over the world. So a pretty special time.
When I often on these calls, and I do say often, we recognize that this product is a gift from God. You agree with that?
100%. I mean, I can't even put it into words. But if it wasn't for Immunocal, I don't even know where Ethan would be. I mean, if
it wasn't for Kurt caring enough about you,
to
share it with you, huh? That's what I think is so important. Oftentimes we talk about how powerful the product is, But unless someone had told you about it, you would never have known. You wouldn't have seen the results, and that's why we appreciate you sharing with us. So, Ethan, our Anthony, if you would hang on just a minute, I want to go to our good friend Dr. Barry White for just a minute. So we've got Ethan at 4 years of age, starting on Immunocal and having great results. He's now 13 years old. And Dr. White, your thoughts?
Yeah, it really doesn't matter the age at which you start, as soon as possible in the process. That's the advantage that Anthony has had simply because he was told about it early in Ethan's life, like in less than 4 years old. So that was a super thing. But anyone that is in the spectrum, the autistic spectrum, at any age, it will make a difference. It will help them. Let's say use the word mature. It'll help them develop, regardless of what age they're at. So you will see a difference in the outcomes of the person's general behaviors and so on, regardless of the age at which they may start the product. But as soon as you hear about it, you start.
Well, I don't want to violate any privacy, Dr. White, but I know you have a pretty close relationship with somebody starting it on it later in life. Would you feel comfortable sharing a little bit of that?
Oh, sure. Our eldest son is in the spectrum as well. He's fairly high functioning, but the whole aspect of almost as soon as we got our hands on Immunocal back now 21 years ago, we got him on the product. Not because we were thinking about the autism part, just to plain get him on. And that has improved his overall health. He had some serious diagnosis with other issues, which are all finished, all taken care of. And although we have to still put up with being on the spectrum, I mean that will stay there. But the general health and well-being and activity and so on all improved. And your son's been on the product for now 20 years. And I believe you told me he just started. 21 years, and he's now 53, right?
53. So he started on it at 32. Okay.
Something like that.
and so it doesn't matter when you start. We talk about that often on these calls. When somebody says, "Well, when should I start on it?" Today is the best day. The day you hear about it's the best day to start with it, Dr. White, and I know that you've seen that, and I know that we've had all these conversations with people, and oftentimes people say, how can one product do so much? What part of a gift from God? Yeah, that didn't you hear me say? Because that's what we see, and we see it over and over again. Now, once again, Dr. White, so with your, Ethan's taking, you know what? I want to go back. Can you hold just a second, Dr. White? Let me go back to Anthony just a minute, because Anthony, the conversation I had earlier with you were talking about now you've also have Ethan on the Cogniva product.
Yeah, it was actually amazing because I obviously have Cogniva. I've taken it, used it, and I thought to myself, I remember Dr. White telling me about it, saying, I think there's a really good product. It's got a lot of, and he told me about it. I thought, I'm going to try it. So, anyways, we started giving it to him, and this has only been maybe 3 weeks now. And last week, I said to his mom, I said, boy, oh boy, he's just different. He's coming in. He's socializing even more and asking questions. And I mean, it's just it was amazing to see. And I thought, wow, let's keep this up and see where it goes. So we've noticed some changes that already, and it's only been, again, less than a month. So I want to keep it going and see. But it's definitely, we've all noticed, another change in him. So I'm excited about that.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, Dr. White, before I open up the calls, any thoughts you might have here before we go to the questions?
I'd love to see what the optimizer would be adding to that. In this case, a little bit longer after you've doing the Cogniva, but I'd like to. I think there's a place for the optimizer in this autism spectrum as well. That would make a significant difference. Anyway, that's just another thought.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. White. Thank you, Anthony. If you'll hold on here. So we're going to open up the lines here, and while we do that, I would ask you if you have a mute button on your phone, or if you're in an area that's noisy, hit *6 now and do that, and we will open this call up in just a moment. Once again, we want to put the caveats in here. The products of Immunotech research do not cure anything, but as Hippocrates said some 2,500 years ago, let food be thy medicine. And simply the most important food you can use is Immunocal and Immunocal Platinum, as well as our other great